Pokémon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are still some of the best-selling 3DS games of all time. But did you know Game Freak made some big changes in their development? Instead of continuing with the trusted team from Pokémon X and Y, Junichi Masuda decided to put together a team of younger staff members instead. He even gave up his own position as the director and passed it on to Shigeru Ohmori. And while this was not the first time other people had directed remakes, little did he know that Ohmori would also become the director of all future mainline games. On top of that, the team only had 1 year to finish the games. Why did Masuda make these decisions, and how did they succeed? In this interview from a Japanese guidebook from 2014, Masuda and Ohmori discuss the development of the games and reveal secrets about how it all came together. Masuda started directing the Pokémon mainline games alongside Satoshi Tajiri for Gold and Silver, meaning he had now been in charge for 15 years. However, Generation 6 would become the turning point in the franchise. While Masuda was still directing X and Y, he decided that it would be time to pass the title on. He says he wanted to entrust the position to a younger generation. I think that staff like Ohmori, who developed and played Pokémon Ruby and Sapphire extensively, felt a lot of things at the time. Like, wouldn't it have been even more interesting if we had done it this way? So I thought I'd put together a project team of young staff from the Pokémon Ruby and Sapphire generation, including Ohmori, and have them share their thoughts with me. But why Ohmori specifically? Well, he was not just some completely new face. While he was 12 years younger than Masuda, he was actually one of the people who knew the Hoenn region the best. Ruby and Sapphire had been the first Pokémon games he ever worked on, and he was solely responsible for almost all of the map design and many other things. He had since done map design and game design for all mainline games, and he was busy working as the planning director for X and Y when Masuda made his decision. Masuda even chose a special day to ask Ohmori to be the director, November 21st, 2012, the 10th anniversary of the original Ruby and Sapphire. Ohmori immediately accepted, even though the development of X and Y hadn't even been finished yet. So, though he first had to focus on completing his current project, the next one was already waiting at the back of his mind. Masuda still didn't give up his involvement completely, of course. His job as a producer started by conveying the game's concept and staff organization ideas to Ohmori. Initially, he only had the overall image of what he wanted the games to be like, and he wanted them to be connected to X and Y. He left everything else, including the game's quality, to Ohmori. Early on, he also gave Ohmori all the materials he had created for the original Ruby and Sapphire, which seems to have made a big impression on Ohmori. He describes, "When I read the 12-year-old specifications Masuda gave me, I often found myself realizing, oh, so that was the meaning behind it, even though I should already have been familiar with Ruby and Sapphire. It was a moving experience to realize how much I myself have grown in the 12 years since I joined Game Freak. I can now deeply understand what Masuda, the original creator of Pokémon Ruby and Sapphire, really wanted to do back then. We developed Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire by combining my own feelings of, if it was me I'd do it like this from back then, to what Masuda wanted to achieve." Even though Ohmori had full control over the game, Masuda would still occasionally check how the development was going. He says he tried not to check the games too early, since he'd only end up interfering in all sorts of ways. He did play through the game half a year into the development, and then wrote Ohmori an email with everything he was concerned about. Still, it was up to Ohmori whether he would fix the issues or not. He says, "Reading Masuda's email, I had many realizations of, I see there's this kind of a perspective too. We had to consider the schedule while discussing the fixes with the staff. However, we incorporated all the elements we thought would improve the games." Ruby and Sapphire had been a major step forward for the Pokémon franchise. With Game Boy Advance, the previously monochrome Pokémon sprites could be seen in full color for the first time, and Ohmori says that the most important thing in the development was recreating the feelings of that time. He had been incredibly moved when he could finally see Pokémon in color, so what could he do so the new games would have a similar impact on the players? One of the solutions the team found was the ability to interact with wild Pokémon through the Dex nav. It was inspired by the fact that in Ruby and Sapphire, for the first time you could hear cries of the wild Pokémon coming from the grass. They expanded on this by letting players check the characteristics of the wild Pokémon, search for specific Pokémon, and sneak up on them. They wanted to capture the feeling of living creatures, and it all also ties into the keywords of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire: abundance and coexistence. Ohmori also reveals that seeing the Pokémon as pixel art in the deck's nav was an intentional throwback to the old games. This way, the players could look at both their screens and realize how much the graphics had improved since the original games. There were also other features they added to recreate the excitement of the original Ruby and Sapphire, and one of them was soaring in the sky on Megalatias or Megalatios. Ruby and Sapphire were the first games where you could explore underwater, so now they added sky as another layer to the world. Ohmori says that the feature was Masuda's idea, and added because he believed people would be thrilled if they could fly on the backs of Pokémon, and well, he was right. They also upgraded secret bases to super secret bases to take advantage of modern internet communication, and Pokémon contests became Pokémon Contest Spectaculars with a revamped system to make it easier for people who didn't know the underlying mechanics. When talking about contests, Masuda and Ohmori also touch upon cosplay Pikachu. Turns out that the idea of a costumed Pikachu had already been around during the development of X and Y, but since it was such a perfect fit for the updated contests, Ohmori decided to include it in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. They came up with lots of costume ideas and also tried them with other Pokémon, but in the end they decided to concentrate on Pikachu. Ohmori explains that Pikachu's strength is being so well known that there's no risk to mistake it for a new Pokémon species. That allowed them to give Pikachu multiple different costumes, trusting that the players would still recognize it as Pikachu. Which makes sense, though now I'd really want to know which other Pokémon they were considering. A development timeline of only 1 year would be a massive challenge for any game, let alone something as big as Pokémon. In the case of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, the games needed to be released quickly so they could be played together with X and Y. The idea of being able to complete the national Pokédex with just these titles was new, and the team wanted that the players could play them in any order. They're also meant to complement each other in terms of their locations. Kalos being based on France and Hoenn being based on the Kyushu region of Japan make the players feel that different worldviews coexist within Pokémon. When talking about the speed of their releases, Masuda mentions the importance of sharing responsibility. Fortunately, Game Freak has a talented staff. I will be the director for completely new titles like Pokémon X and Y, but I can safely leave sequels to other directors. The role of director comes with responsibility, but in return we have created an environment that allows them to develop the games freely. Centered around each director, I hope the team members unite as one and pour their full energy into creating an interesting game. I should stress that this is what he said in 2014. We know that this is not exactly how it went for the next games, considering Ohmori also directed Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield, as well as Scarlet and Violet. There may be a reason for that, but I'm sure there are already plenty of videos on that topic. So, moving on. Masuda does also admit that the speed and quality often compete with each other. He acknowledges the longer you spend, the better the quality will be, but also wonders if spending something like 3 years on a game is too slow for today's world. He says he wants to release new games at the time when players feel like playing them. Fixed development period means it's easier to define what you want to improve. Change this, keep that. Then the team does the best they can in that 1 year. Finally, having overseen the new games developed by a new director on a tight schedule, one more question remains. What did Masuda think about the final result? I think they're extremely well done. It's difficult when there's an original work because players have strong feelings for the original. When an RPG I played a long time ago is reborn and re-released, I wanted to retain as much of what was good about it as possible. For example, even a slight change in the music arrangement can feel jarring. What to keep and what to change? It's an extremely difficult balance to strike, but this work has achieved that brilliantly. The entire team's approach to production was fantastic, and I think it must have been incredibly tough with only a year of production time, but they did a great job. I'm very satisfied. And that's probably the best praise a new director can get. Here's all I have for you today. I still have a pile of other interviews to translate, plus a bunch of other various research projects in the works. I've already translated interviews on X and Y and Gold and Silver, so if you want to know more Game Freak secrets, have a look at those next, and I'll hopefully see you again soon.